Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this video, we're going to be considering the Congregation Bible Study for the week of June 2nd to 8th, 2025. Let's get started. So, chapter 27, paragraphs 10 to 18 for this week. The subtheme reads, "It's spoken against everywhere." Paragraph 10 question, what were Paul's circumstances in Rome and what did the apostle do soon after his arrival? Paul was permitted to stay by himself with the soldier guarding him. For those in light custody, security against escape usually called for a chain that bound the prisoner to his guard. Okay, and the next question, after giving himself just 3 days to recover from the journey, he called together the principal men of the Jews in Rome in order to introduce himself and give a witness. Some lessons we learn from this. Paul waited 3 days before acting, likely to rest and pray. It's wise to care for our physical and emotional health, but we must avoid spiritual procrastination. Paul's initiative, he didn't wait for the Jews to come to him. He called them to share his faith. We wouldn't wait for the perfect moment to witness. Taking action is key. 11 and 12. When speaking to his fellow Jews, how did Paul attempt to break down any prejudice they may have had? Paul addressed the Jews as brothers to find common ground and dispel prejudice, and he clarified that his appeal to Caesar was not an accusation against them or against his nation, but a legal procedure, a legal necessity. Some lessons we learn from this: avoid confrontation, seek common ground when preaching. For example, if someone believes in God but is in another religion, you might say, "I'm glad you love God, just as I do. What do you think about the promise of a better world?" And about misunderstandings, correcting misunderstandings patiently. If someone says you are a sect or a cult, respond, "I understand your concern. We simply aim to follow Jesus as the early or first Christians did." 13 and 14. How did Paul introduce the kingdom then, and how can we imitate his example? Paul now introduced the kingdom then by way of a statement that was sure to arouse the curiosity of his Jewish guests. He said, "For this reason I asked to see you and speak to you, for it's because of the hope of Israel that I have this chain around me." Okay, this last part is very significant. The hope of Israel. What's the hope of Israel? The promised Messiah and of course God's kingdom. And how can we imitate his example? We use questions or statements that intrigue listeners. Tools like reasoning from the scriptures, theocratic ministry school book, teaching brochure, lab people brochure, etc. Bearing thorough witness, a model for us. 15. What 4 things stand out concerning Paul's witness? First, he focused on God's kingdom. Second, he tried to appeal to his listeners by using persuasion. Third, he reasoned from the scriptures. Fourth, he showed a selfless attitude, witnessing from morning to evening. 16 to 18. Why was the negative response of the Roman Jews no surprise to Paul, and how should we feel when our message is rejected? This response was no surprise to Paul, for it harmonized with the Bible prophecy and followed a pattern with which he was familiar. Paul said while they're going, "The Holy Spirit aptly spoke through Isaiah the prophet to your forefathers, saying, 'Go to these people and say, you'll indeed hear, but by no means understand, and you'll indeed look, but by no means see. For the heart of these people has grown unreceptive.'" Okay, and what about us? Like Paul, let us not take it personally when people reject the message, reject us in the preaching work. After all, we know that comparatively few will find the road to life, the way to life. Not many people. When rightly disposed ones do take a stand for true worship, let us rejoice and welcome them with an open heart. This is during our Christian meetings. Let us welcome them with a loving and kind attitude. Some lessons from this account. Paul knew many Jews would reject the message. Prophecy foretold it. He didn't feel like a failure. The responsibility was theirs. Don't be discouraged if others don't listen. Focus on faithful sowing. This is very important. We avoid forcing growing, but our work is sowing, not forcing to grow. Okay friends, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you so much for joining us in this consideration. We hope you have a wonderful day, be safe, and hope to see you in our next video.